Hey guys, Django Fett here, Hunting Down Games, Comics, TV shows, movies, and more, and this is a review for the original Willow movie. So, with the Willow TV series out now, first 2 episodes that is, what better way to then talk about the original Willow movie that came out back in 1988? A little bit before my time. And this movie holds a very special place in my heart. So this came out back in 1988 and directed by Ron Howard and screenplay by Bob Dolman. And the idea of this movie actually came out with George Lucas back in '72. He conceived the idea and, he wanted to do something different than Star Wars and focus on fantasy, and approached Warwick Davis, who was Wicket the Ewok at the time, to portray the main character, Willow Ufgood, and he accepted, and through some delays, it actually, then production started much later than '72, obviously, and came out in 1988. The film came at a time in the '80s when fantasy films were a big thing. Films like Legend, Labyrinth, The Neverending Story, The Princess Bride, Conan the Barbarian, Clash of the Titans, The Beastmaster, you name it. There was an abundance of amazing fantasy films back in the time, and Willow would end up being one of the last great fantasy films of the 80s. The movie starts with the opening crawl, stating that there is a prophecy that a child with a special birthmark will bring about the downfall of the reigning queen Bavmorda. So she imprisons pregnant women to find this baby, and one of the nursemaids discovers the baby and escapes with the baby, and at her last moment puts the baby down the river to eventually land to a village of dwarves or Nelwyn, with the main lead Willow, who happens upon a little human baby named Alora of the Tall People, or Daikini as they're called by the Nelwyn, and begin a quest to give her to her people. However, this girl is something special and evil forces want her too. They eventually run into a few people, including Mad Mardigan as Val Kilmer and Joanne Whalley as Sorsha, and many others along the way to help them on their quest. So if you couldn't tell, there are a mix of elements here with Moses' story, Lord of the Rings, like with the Nelwyn, and Willow going out like Bilbo, seeking adventure, and obviously a fun, lighthearted yet serious movie when it comes to this family movie. I grew up with this film, man, and remember bits of it that still come back to me, and I still enjoy it. And when I found out it was coming out on Disney Plus, I had to watch it right away, because at the time, it was actually pretty difficult to get this movie. On Blu-ray, it was very difficult. It was very expensive to get. It was very limited release for Willow. So when Disney Plus came out, and I'm checking again, Amazon, it's much cheaper, just to get a copy on the Blu-ray. So there is that, and now you can get the physical release much cheaper. But now that it's on Disney Plus, what better way to watch it than there? The standouts with first being Val Kilmer as Mad Mardigan, who kills it in this eccentric yet proud brigand warrior of sorts. So charismatic, and man, back in the 80s and 90s, Val Kilmer was one of the best actors in the business. It's just a shame what this man had to go through in his life, and I really feel for him. I really need to finish watching the documentary on him called Val. I heard nothing but good things about it, but I love Val Kilmer, man. He was one of my childhood icons at the time, and I will say Val Kilmer, the best movie he did was Willow for me. That's how much of an impact Val Kilmer and this movie had on me. And the second standout is easily Warwick Davis as Willow Ufgood, and this is his film, man. And it's nice to see representation on small people, or on the dwarf side, I should say. And it really shows that heroes can come in all shapes and sizes and still get through it and win in the end, despite their so-called disadvantages in life. And overall, this movie is fun and engaging with a lot of memorable moments. However, there are some dated things associated with this movie. The cheesy dialogue, just really bad moments here and there. and as well as the CGI for the horrible looking dragon, the trolls, not the CGI for that, but the trolls just looking like apes for some odd reason, and the brownies just not great. Also, the two brownies are side characters in this movie, and they're some of the most annoying and insufferable worst side characters ever. Jar Jar has nothing on these sons of bitches. But I will say Ron Howard did a great job directing this film, and would end up being one of the first film of his many in his career that would do great. This is the first film that would really explode his career to do even bigger and better things like A Beautiful Mind and How the Grinch Stole Christmas, and have to give him credit for even the Solo movie. And I also have with me the novel adaptation. This is quite an old copy, used copy, and it's got some of the photos from the film, which look great. And yeah, this is pretty rough. It's a rough condition. But I read this back in the day. Really enjoyed this. This is an adaptation by Waylon Drew a long time ago when I read it. And enjoyed it. And it has some additional background information for several characters that is important. And it also has deleted scenes on here as well. I do wish, when it comes to streaming as well, this has to be said. I will never understand why they don't put deleted scenes and extras for certain movies, any type of movie, like this movie, Dune, you name it. At least have that. I mean, I understand you just have the movie, but if we really are into the movie and we want to see deleted scenes and, the making of this movie, I just want to see it from the streaming service. And Disney Plus doesn't have that. HBO, all these different services don't have that. And that's a disadvantage when it comes to streaming versus getting the physical copies. So that needs to be said. The fact that there's no deleted scenes, there's nothing, just the movie itself. I mean, the movie is great, but you want additional stuff associated with it as well. You want to see. So going back to this, there's additional stuff associated with that is actually pretty interesting and pretty cool. So I do recommend reading it. Then there's also the sequel novels I have to address as well. These would be created by George Lucas and the legendary Chris Claremont, who you remember from, this comic days with Wolverine and such. Now, the sequel novels actually take place 15 years after the original film, however. And what put me off immediately from actually reading these books and getting into them was that Mad Mardigan and Sorsha were killed off early on in the book. And that just destroyed my interest right there. I would love to see them just carry the mantle and do some epic things. But the fact that they killed them off, no. I have literally zero interest in that. So fuck that shit. So glad we have the TV series to be the sequel. And hopefully that ends up being good. I know that's going to be set around 16 years after the events of Willow. So very close to how the novel series by Chris Claremont are. So it'll be interesting to see how they pull it off in comparison to the novels. I am really curious about that. So I have to give Willow, 1988 movie, a... Everything from the story to the characters is so memorable to me, and it's just a great fantasy family film. And even though there might be some violence and scary imagery here and there for small kids, but I do recommend it. I will also say the ending for the movie with a goodbye to Mad Mardigan, Sorsha, and Laura was a little weak to me. However, when he gets greeted by his Nelwyn tribe and greeted as a hero, was just epic and awesome. And it was just even more awesome to see in comparison to how in Lord of the Rings you don't even see that at all. They just return home like they're not heroes or anything. They're all living in their own solitary world. But the fact that they're greeted and they just loved, it's just so heartwarming and beautiful. And with the recurring musical theme of this movie, just brought it so much life. So let's see how the Willow TV series ends up being. It's just nice to see Warwick Davis back as Willow and Joanne Whalley as Sorsha. Not sure how I feel about the new cast. I'm sure it'll grow on me. But it helps to have the original creators like Bob Dolman and Ron Howard back. Interestingly, Bob Dolman wrote the script for Far and Away with Tom Cruise. And also directed by Ron Howard. And so there's that affiliation there. But after that, Bob hasn't really done anything relevant since then. So it's nice to see him back to do Willow again, be it just for 2 episodes. So let's find out how they do the Willow TV series. I am excited. So don't forget to please like this video, comment down below. Tell me what you think of the original Willow movie in the comment section below. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Let me know in the comment section. And subscribe to my channel, Django Fett. And I'll see you, my fellow Mandalorian brothers and sisters, next time. Ooh, yeah.